Welcome to Shore Perspectives, a community feature of WESR Radio, highlighting the spirit of the shore from those who call it home.
My name is Stephanie Scarborough, and I live in Temperanceville. So 29 years ago, very close to 30 years ago, I was pregnant with her, and when you go to the doctor, they ask your family history and the dad's family history. And her dad found out that he had the sickle cell trait when he went into the military. So I told them, I said, well, her dad has the sickle cell trait. And they said, well, we're going to test you for it. They tested me. My test was positive, and they said, well, there's a 50-50 chance that, your baby's going to have sickle cell. And they even said to me, they said, you can abort this pregnancy now if you want to. And I said, no. I said, I don't want to do that. So, a few months later, she was born October 1994, and she was tested before she left the hospital, and her test was positive that she had the disease. At that time, I knew very little about sickle cell. I do remember going to school with someone that had it, and I just knew that it was very painful, and they missed a lot of time from school. So I started researching it, and I found out that people that are born with sickle cell, they have inherited two faulty genes from each parent, which is the hemoglobin S gene. And with that gene, it causes their cells to be sickled, kind of like in the shape of a banana, whereas regular cells are, in the shape of a circle. And then when they sickle, it's hard to pass through the bloodstream, and wherever those cells are, wherever they get stuck, that's where the most pain is, and they call that a pain crisis. So because it is in the blood, that means it travels throughout your whole body. So you can have pain from this disease anywhere, mainly in your joints a lot, but there's other areas. She's had it in her back, in her legs, her neck, it's just pain, excruciating pain everywhere. And because of the cells sickling, it also damages your organs. So that's when that's pretty much how we found out. We actually knew before she was born that she, may have the disease, and as soon as she was born, that's when she was diagnosed. It seems like the older she got, the more the disease affected her. So growing up, she could not do some of the things that other kids would do, like go outside and play in the snow. I remember letting her get in a swimming pool one time, and she ended up in the hospital just from getting in the swimming pool. So she was able to. I tried to give her the best life that I could, even though she had sickle cell, and I knew that she couldn't do what other kids could do. She'd miss a lot of time from school from time to time. People with sickle cell are very prone to get pneumonia. She had pneumonia a lot as a child. Seemed like every year she was in the hospital with pneumonia. She started off in King's Daughters, in Children's Hospital in Norfolk, and she was there until she was 22. And they told her, when once you go over to the adult side, it's going to be a lot different. So she started going to Salisbury Hospital a lot, and at that point she needed a medicine called Dilaudid, and they would not give that medicine in the emergency room, only if you were admitted. So a lot of times she just needed to go to the emergency room, get the pain under control, and come home. So then we started going to Riverside Shore Memorial. We'll go to Riverside. Everybody in the emergency room knows her, all the doctors, all the nurses, because we've been there so much that everybody knows us. And they would manage her pain. She's been admitted more times than I can tell you. She's been in the the emergency room more times than I can count. And then she was referred to the cancer center, which is right beside Riverside. So she would go there twice a month for hydration. And the hydration is just getting liquids so that you won't get dehydrated, because once you're dehydrated, your cells don't flow as easily, and then that'll cause a pain crisis. So in order to keep her cells flowing, she'd have to go and get hydrated at the cancer center there at Shore Memorial. The support system has been very great, and I would like to thank the Oak Hall Rescue Squad, because every time they would pick her up, they knew exactly what to do. They'd come in, they'd even start her IV on the ambulance. I can't think of the guy's name, but she knows his name. Every time he would come to pick her up, he'd bring a blanket, he'd wrap her in the blanket, he'd pick her up and hold her, and he would take her and, put her in the ambulance and hold her hand all the way to the hospital. So, just from the EMTs to the nurses to the doctors, everybody knew who she was. Everybody was very, very nice for the most part, especially the nurses down at Riverside. They knew to come in and get right at it, and get her feeling better. They always knew what to do, and they were right on top of it as soon as she came in. Back in 2022, I believe it was, she was having very bad headaches, and she went to Riverside, and they gave her an MRI. So the MRI showed that she had a very, very bad sinus infection, which was causing the headaches, but it also showed that she had 6 mini strokes. I told the neurologist down at Riverside that I was going to take her to Johns Hopkins. And during that time, Kamisha Handy, she put on a sickle cell awareness seminar back in September, which was Sickle Cell Month. And it was a 3-day, I think it was a 3 or 4 day, but it was like each Thursday of the month. We would go and hear the story of someone that had already been cured. And the doctor from Johns Hopkins was there. So after one of the sessions, we walked up to him and we talked about what was going on with her. And he said, "Here's my card, call my office, get in my office as soon as possible." So we started the ball rolling towards the end of 2022. You have to go through a lot of blood tests to see who's a bone marrow match. I just happened to be a perfect match for her, and we started from there. I knew that there was a cure because back in 2019, I was watching 60 Minutes, and they showed a girl on there in Tennessee that was the first person in Tennessee to go through the bone marrow transplant to get cured. And I called her in the room and I said, "Look, that's going to be you one day." And I kept believing it because I did not believe that she was just going through this just to be going through it. I knew that there was a purpose for it. I always believed that she was going to be healed. Even as a baby, they said, well, the life expectancy is about 40 years old. And I always believed that God was going to heal her body and that she was not going to live her whole life with sickle cell. So we, after going to Johns Hopkins for a series of tests, she had 3 days of chemo, 1 day of radiation, and then the next day was the bone marrow transplant, and that was the day that I had surgery. They stuck 8 needles in my pelvic bone to get a liter of bone marrow for her, because your bone marrow is what produces your cells, and her bone marrow produced sickled cells. My bone marrow produced normal cells, so they gave her my bone marrow through an IV. After that, she still had to go through a few more days of chemo, and take a lot of medicine. Of course, she had to stay at Johns Hopkins for about 60 days. But now she is completely free of sickle cell disease, and it's been a blessing. She's very thankful. She's living a life now she never imagined she would live. She came home in October. And on November the 27th, Pocomoke had their Christmas parade. She was able to sit outside on Main Street in Pocomoke and just enjoy the Christmas parade without being put in the hospital the next day. So that's where she is. She's still, going back and forth to Johns Hopkins frequently for doctor's visits. She actually went this morning, and now she is off of all her meds except for 2. Because after the transplant, she was on a lot of medicine. But now she's down to 2 meds a day. And she's good. She is very good. She's glowing. She lost her hair through chemo, but her hair is growing back. She's just living a life that she never imagined. I'm a firm believer in God, and I believe God knows how much you can handle. And we went through this for 29 years, and by year 28, I said, God, I can't take this anymore. We're tired. We're tired. Back and forth to the hospital. I mean, all the time. In and out the hospital. And I said, God, I'm just tired. But I would not let her give up. So I had to be strong. When things got really rough, I had to say, it's going to get better. Just hold on. Just hold on a little while longer. You've come too far to give up. It's going to get better. And not only did I say that to her, but I believe that. And now it's better. And she's cured.
For Shore Perspectives and WESR Radio, I'm Kelley Gaskell.